Right, welcome everyone. Lovely to see you all on a cloudy Sunday afternoon and to one of our Sunday afternoon talks. Today we have Yogachariya Jnandev. He's been basically spent his entire life dedicated to yoga and all of its aspects. He's been all around India. He's actually a student of Dr. Ananda Bhavanani, another great teacher that we have at the festival. And Jnandev has come and taught, and he's been very successful in his teaching at the World Yoga Festival. We're really very pleased at the support that he has given us through a number of years. And today, in fact, he's taking this class. We're very pleased. It's always good that teachers of this caliber come and spread their knowledge amongst us all. So I won't do any more of an introduction. He'll only get embarrassed. I will hand you over to him and welcome Jnandev. Thank you very much indeed for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sri Ramji and Sonaleji. It's always pleasure. I think for me, if I start with, the work you both are doing at the moment, and since the World Yoga Festival has started, it's truly amazing, admirable work, and we need more of these festivals. And over the lockdown, the way you have offered the whole, the support for people and sharing all these teachings and bringing so many of the teachers together, it has been great. And I guess for me, my talk really, today is all about sort of understanding our epigenetics and then the gunas and samskaras and karma, and then looking at the yogic journey of health and well-being or the evolution. So to me, I can really say that you both have inculcated some amazing, immense spiritual amount of the samskaras and the karma. And, there must be like millions of lifetime journey that we already taken through to come to the point where we are.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. And I'm really grateful for having the team, all these audience, the people who are joining us together. And yeah, this is one of the subject actually I'm working for quite a few years, and I do find it quite fascinating. And it started for me not actually long ago, maybe last year around October or November, when I was invited in Queen's University, because they were doing this whole sort of looking at the epigenetics and the neuroscience, and then trying to understand some of the ideas from our ancient Vedic culture. And then they invited me to represent our Vedic science. So that was my first sort of glimpse into trying to really understand this whole genetic and epigenetic way to look at our personality, our health and well-being. And still, I haven't really concluded. So this is my sort of the first kind of really the model that I expanded since that talk. And yeah, when I look at the epigenetics from me, when I look at the modern science and our yogic sort of concepts and the science together, I do see that we can easily put those two together in concept of the gunas, samskaras and karma. I guess the only thing for me still I'm trying to really work on, do I put the genetics with the gunas, or do I put the gunas with the epigenetics and then the samskaras and karma with the genetic or epigenetic? Or sometime I also think maybe they all three together, when we put them together, that's where we really begin with it. So anyway, let's try to understand a little bit about the epigenetics. And so some of you may be not aware really what we're talking here. So, we can begin with the simply understanding our human life structure itself. Our human body is sort of composed with the many, many millions of cells. And then each cell has its own function, its own sort of activities. And these activities, the individual activities of each cell, is governed by the structure, the chemical structure of our DNA in each cell. And that cell, sort of think of that as a mastering or the governing part of our cell, that what it need to be taken from the outer environment, and then it processes it through the metabolism, and then it takes it out. So this whole cellular life formation goes with it. And in our body we got around 3 million different nucleotide bases or these DNAs. And so understanding, so that these DNAs we have, that they are actually composing or they're carrying our genetic code or or sort of think of that as a genetic wisdom. I guess for me, when I think of the genetic wisdom, I always think of having a seed in my hand. And that seed actually carries all the wisdom it needs. So once it gets planted and it gets the right environment, earth, water, air, and the sunlight, then it grows into a tree what it should be. So if you plant a mango tree, you're only going to get mango seed, you get mangoes. If you plant a lemon seed, you're going to get lemon. So think of that genetic code we're talking about here, that each seed carries its own wisdom. So in similar way, we also carry this genetic code that actually makes us human being. Otherwise, if you look at so many animals, and it's quite interesting, the modern science talking about the chimpanzee, some of the monkey species, their DNA is very close to our human DNA. A very fraction difference between them is really what makes us human being. And then within the millions of the billions of the DNA we have, we carry around like 20,000 different genes. And these genes have their own structure, their own trigger, and the biological sort of the points through which we carry our life functions. And sort of think again that these DNA is what makes us, each one of us, an individual in our functions or the life processes we go through. Now, what makes, as we're talking about, our genetic level or the DNA, they all are quite similar. But what makes them different is which end of the genetic code or the genetic order is switched on and which part of it is actually switched off. And each of the DNA can have many sort of like a multi-dimensional ways of the switched on and off parts. So whichever end of that DNA we're talking about, the genetics we're talking about, is switched on or off, that's what makes us all individual. And to me, when you think of this epigenetic way, it's like we all have a similar sort of structure of the genetic or the DNA structure, the proteins, but the width end or how it is actually switched on and off for each one of us makes us all different. So our physical appearance is different, our color, our way we think, way we talk, way we communicate, way we do things, even if we put same thing in front of each one of us, our experience of the same image or the same situation, same event, or the perception can be so different. So that difference in our physical body and our mind body is actually due to this epigenetic form. And these epigenetics are everywhere. So this is epigenetic is actually not only we are born with, but we are also continuously learning them. We are also continuously acquiring them. The food we eat, people we meet, the books you read, the movie, the cinema you watch. So all the information that goes in and out through our senses, our mind and thoughts, that constantly manipulating our genetic codes and then switching our epigenetic level. I guess, the simplest example of really think of how our biology changes when our mind changes. You are sitting around some amazing yogic people and you are listening about the talk or the satsang on yoga or maybe some spiritual practice or meditation. Your mind and your biology at that moment is releasing the chemicals or the biochemicals that helps you to keep your mind on that positive track. But if I move you from that satsang space into a cafe where some amazing coffee is being brewed and some cakes are like, the fragrance of the cakes and food is flying around. So in both the situation, if you think how your biology changed, your desires, your sort of the thought process has changed because of that situation. So our neuroscience, is talking about the epigenetics are there, sort of making us, each one of us, individual, but these epigenetics are also continuously changing. Now, I guess when we look at or understand the epigenetics in that way, the epigenetics are making us unique in our body, mind, our thought processes, as well as experiences. And really what makes us more unique is the combination of the genes which are turned on and off. And it's very interesting, some of the ideas when I think about them, in one of the Jain Agama, where it talks about that each of our cell, sampikha apagama payanam. So each cell in our body actually has the potential to perform the action or the functions of any cell you want. So it's sort of think, if you can sense your cell at epigenetic level, your finger, the cells in your finger and skin can also work as your eyes or your ears. And it's interesting, if you think of some of the parapsychological powers, like we have the clairvoyance, clairaudience. So these sort of psychic powers can be understood through this idea. Anyway, we're not going in that for now, as we are more looking into the concept of health and well-being. Now, when a particular of our genes are turned on and off, depending on if they are switched on in harmony with the rest of the cells around them, then that is sort of like, think of that as our health and well-being, as we're talking about the non-dualism. So when there is no conflict between your genes or the group of cells which are switched on together. But when there is a conflict where the different ends or the different sort of sides of the genes are switched on, then there is a cause, there is a friction which causes the health problem or the pain or the discomfort. Now, the good thing here at our genetic and epigenetic level, the neuroscience says these epigenetics are reversible. So sort of you can really think of, the health problems we have, even some of the chronic health problems, we can gradually, through our yogic lifestyle or health and well-being, sort of really following the practices, the tapas, we can reverse our health and well-being. And I have experienced this several times with people. I had one of my very sincere student, and he had some serious back problem, the fibromyalgia, and he used to actually have between 4 and 5 injections every month as a painkiller or the steroids. And then gradually, he really sincerely took the yoga practices, and he was doing his regular hatha yoga, pranayama, and some of the meditation. And then he was also changed his food and his lifestyle. And after 5 or 6 years, as his medicine gradually got less and less. And what was really surprised, after 6 years or something, a few months ago, they did his test again. And his consultant said that maybe all this time he was misdiagnosed, because his back is completely cured. The problem is not there. So it's kind of, for me, it was really, so when I got this good email from my student and good friend, I felt like, yes, what I'm thinking here at an epigenetic level, actually, we can reverse our genes and reestablish our health and well-being to the best we can. Anyway, so that's a bit of like a complex one to understand, but I try to keep it as simple as it could have been possible. So now we move into really understanding this epigenetic and genetic concept from the yogic perspective. And I guess this is sort of still, I'm really doing some research and sort of working through my own practice and trying to experience where it should really go. So for me, when I think that way, really for the yogic understanding of our genetic and epigenetic level, it begins with the understanding the concept of our Tri-Gunas. As Lord Krishna says, in beginning, we have the Prakriti. So the Prakriti is the nature or the primordial qualitative force that exists in this universe. And then we have the Purusha or the consciousness. And when these two meet together and then they find the combinations of these primary qualities of the nature, 3 gunas, then the whole universe manifests. Each one of the living and non-living beings or the existence that is there in our universe, they all carry a different or its own particular combination or the ratio of these 3 gunas. So these 3 gunas, I'm sure you all would have known as the Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Now, we all are predominantly driven or governed by one or other of these primary or the primordial qualities. But then we also have the ratio of each one of them. Now, here, please, before we go anywhere further, each quality has its own value, its own essence, and its own reason, its own beauty. When they get out of the balance or out of harmony, that's where our health problems really begin. I know lots of time when we hear someone say like tamas is a very negative or the dark energy, but for me, tamas is the inertia, also the mass, the matter, and the stability we need. So the creation of this material life actually being held together by the tamas. If we lose the tamas, if we lose the solidarity, the earth, the base or the foundation, then our material, our life that we can experience would not be there. Then we have the rajas, which is more of the activity, the passion or the energy, the action, the transformation that comes through it. And then the sattva is the truth or the essence or the purity. So these three qualities, sort of thinking of them, they're governing our life processes, but they also, again, are the determination factors of each one of our life. So your birth, your color of your skin, your caste, your country that you have been born, the people you're surrounded by, or the life choices or the karma that you're going through. As Krishna explains in Bhagavat Gita, all that is driven through these three qualities and their mix or their ratios that we all are living in. Now here again, just like in the epigenetic, we said it's all reversible. So even though we are born with the predefined or the sort of like a map you can think of, like if you have got the Google map or the map that you are using in your car to drive around. So there is a predefined map that you have that you can follow that to get from your point A to B. But if you become a little bit more sort of creative and you look around the map and see which one is the shortcut or how I can avoid the traffic, how I can, take a bit of quicker route or more efficient route. So that's what Krishna explains. If you understand the concept of three gunas and you become aware of their energy and how the life is governed by them, then you can actually learn to ride the waves of your own life energy. As like, if you go out for surfing, if you know how to ride the waves, such amazing thrill, such amazing fun and experience. If you don't know how to ride them, then it can be quite a destroying of your health and well-being. So these three gunas, once you understand them, I guess we can manipulate, we can play around them and bring the change or the transformation we all like to be. Now, these three gunas of the sattva, rajas, and tamas, they again, before we go any further, we need to understand this concept of chatur purusarthas. So the four primary life goals or the dharma that we all are born to fulfill. So these chatur purusarthas are the four dimensions of the life fulfillment, how we all fulfill our life. What is the gratification for each individual can be very different. So the highest of the gratification that people can follow is the dharma, which is the righteous living. Is think of you really doing or taking part in each and every activity that need to be done by you in that particular moment. So the righteous living in harmony or living in peace and fulfilling all that the duties by being selfless, not all about me. Then we have the artha, which is the material fulfillment in our material possessions. It brings power, it brings energy, it brings lots of control. It also brings lots of gratification in its own way. So the money, the job, the power, think of artha as showing our presence or our gratification in the material and our social perspective. Then the third one we have is the kama, which is the sensual desires or the procreation. It has all the principles of pleasure seeking. I know again with the kama, whenever we use the word, lots of us sort of put it straight into the sexual pleasure. But actually, if you look at the subtle aspect of it, kama includes all our pleasure seeking principles. So the art, culture, music, beauty, writing, reading, all that will actually come into the sensual pleasure or the procreation. And in a very gross form, we have the sexual energy that flows through it. And then the creative energy also flows through this. And then the fourth of the purusarthas or the goals of the life we have is the moksha, the spiritual realization, where your life aim or your gratification is in attaining the self-realization or atma jnana. Atma is the soul and jnana is the wisdom or the realization. So here he's thinking of the dharma, the first of the purusartha. People who are predominantly governed by the sattva, they tend to always follow the path of dharma. People who are predominantly governed by the rajas tend to follow the path of artha. People who are more predominantly governed by the tamas, and the rajas also has lots of influence in it, as they follow the path of kama. And then people who are sattvic, but also have the practice or the attitude of vairagya, this letting go or the detachment, or when you have the strong desire, the internal force to attain this self-realization. So those are the people who follow moksha. So I guess the people, the saints, the yogis, all these sadhus, the monks who are following the yoga for the bigger reason, they can be seen into this part. So here sort of, looking at this, actually, you can clearly see how the way our nature has been governed by our gunas, it even makes our life choices and the way we live our life and what we feel gratification or what we feel joy and happiness in can be different for each one of us. And as you know, in one of the most beautiful teaching that comes from the Vedanta and yoga, is your whole life that you're living around you is simply your own perspective or your own mindful thoughts, the energy that you are radiating. And I do really love one of the story that comes from, again, the Upanishads, where one of this guy, he was looking for somewhere else to live. He left the village that he was living before, and in this search, he came to this amazing gate at the beginning of this beautiful village, and there was an old man who is sitting in front of the gate, and he stopped the man. He said, "Oh, tell me, what are you looking for?" And this man tells him like, "Oh, I'm looking to move into a new village because I need to find a better place to live. What do you think? Do you think this village is full of happy, honest, and loving people, or this village is full of all these people who carry hate and the separation and the pain, anger?" And this old man looks at him and he said, "Oh, tell me a little bit about the previous village where you come from." And the guy looks at him and says like, "Oh, please don't even remind me the name of the previous village. The minute you ask me, my cell, my skin, my muscles get so tense and I feel like so angry. My blood, my heartbeats are just going too fast. Please don't remind me. They were the worst people I would ever meet in my life." And he said, "That's why I have left, because I need to find somewhere more peaceful." Now the old man looks at him and he said, "Oh, I have, born in this village and I've spent all my 8 years in the same place. And I can tell you from my experience, this village is worse than you would have ever seen. All the people are terrible. There is no peace. There is no love. And I think it's better for you to go and find the place somewhere else to live." Well, the man turned his horse around and he went off. He went somewhere else. Now, in few minutes, again, there is another family actually, riding a bull cart. And they turned up onto the same gate, and the old man stopped them too. And he said, "Oh, is there any way he can help?" So the family come off the cart, and they explained them like, "Oh, we were living in this beautiful village, and we decided that we had enough of our experience or life there. We want to make our living or life and experience something different." And he said, "Oh, can you tell me," they asked the old man, same question, "Tell me a little bit about this village. What do you think of people in this village?" And the old man asked him exactly same question again. "Tell me a little bit about the village where you're coming from and why did you leave it?" And the family started to talk to him again. Similarly, like the other man, he said, "Oh, please, thinking of the last village we were being there, my skin just feels like dancing and I just feel like so much emotion, that the love they had, the compassion and so much support. But the reason we left that village because we felt like we need to explore our life at some different level. We want to see or travel further to have a different perspective or different experience." And the old man looks at them and he said, "Oh, I think you are in the right place. I don't think you will find more peaceful people ever in the whole world compared to this village itself. And I had my 8 years of life experience and it's a good place. Please do come in and you are welcome to the village." Now, as they go on, someone was sort of like you and me standing there, sort of listening or witnessing the old man talking to both of them. And he come forward and said, "Oh, I don't really understand. Like, you talk about the exactly same village. To the one man, you said, this is the terrible village, terrible people. And to the second one, you're saying, this is amazing people, all loving, caring, and truly sort of, humanitarian people or the group of people live here. And he said, it's not the village, it's the heart or the mindset, the feelings, the emotions, and how we're seeing things. So he talks about, our own experience, our own consciousness, and the mindset is manifesting or projecting the people, the material, and the life experience that we have all around us. So our perspective is really what makes our world the way it feels, the way it looks around us. Okay, so as earlier I mentioned, a sattvic person follow the path of dharma, and they sort of, again, when we talk about these three gunas, the sattva and rajasic and the tamasic, they actually do create the bondage or the attachment to the cycle of our life and birth. And remember, the life itself is actually governed by the principles of our duality, or this conflict, and then the balance or the harmony between these three qualities. Then we can also look at the three dosas. So each of these qualities, even though they might be predominantly in one or other, they actually creating the attachment to the life cycle itself. Now, the attachment, the way we are looking at, the way our epigenetic sort of genes are switched on and off are different for each of the categories. So for the sattvic people, their happiness is actually in service, in compassion, in harmony, in life, what I can do for other people, or how I can bring peace and love for each and everyone. And their karma is always sort of driven by the good cause or the humanitarian cause. So they're looking for the health and peace, not only for themselves, but also everyone else around them too. So it kind of gives us one set of mindset or the attitude or the perception or the outlook that we can have. Then we have the rajasic people. So these are the people who are governed by the force of dynamic change or the energy. Now, these people are driven by the earth and the kama. So for them, the wealth, the power, the happiness that comes through that material fulfillment creates attachment to the life or the life process itself. Now, I guess because the material possessions, as in Veda or in Vedanta, in yoga, we believe that all the material experiences or all the material objects that we experience through our senses, they all are temporary. They all are illusion or maya. They are subject to change, subject to transformation. Only reality is the Atma or the consciousness, the Purusha. So because this is all unreal, it's all subject to change, and we lose them, we gain them. So this brings the sense of possessiveness, control, and also brings the fear and some of the I guess, the negative mindset with it too. The tamas or the tamasic people, they are very short-sighted, and they have a huge amount of inertia, which sort of sometimes covers the intellect. And their happiness actually lies into the sensual gratification, things like food, drink, or tactile stimulus, attractive visual objects, and sort of the things they read and watch and listen. It has to be lots and lots of vibrant sort of flow or the sensual pleasure seeking energy in it. And because of that, I guess these people fall prey much easier to depression, dullness, laziness, sloth, and loneliness, because their gratification is all about I, while like the sattva, the gratification is all about we. And then again in Rajasika, it's sort of like, it can have the two ways to look at it. Again, Rajasic people can be amazingly vibrant people to help us in our life, and they can be also quite egotistic and self-centered. Now, I guess when we look at the concept of the gunas, and so far what you have understood from a yogic perspective or a yogi's from a yogi's eyes, when you come to the path of yoga, then we are seeking the first path. We want to transcend from the tamas into the rajasic, and then from rajasic to the sattvic. As Krishna explains in Bhagavat Gita, that each of the three gunas, our tamas, rajas, and sattva, they are actually constantly in battle to dominate. So if some of us think, oh, I'm primarily in sattva all my life from the birth to the end, actually that is very hard digestive truth, because mostly they are always in battle, and we are moving between the three of these primary qualities. And I guess in some ways, for even your health and wellness, we do need each of these qualities to be taken over or to be predominantly driving us. As there is a time to sleep. So if you go to bed and you're trying to sleep and your sattva or your rajas takes over, you will struggle to sleep. So in that moment, you need the tamas, the tamasic energy to take over. So your body shuts down and you feel heavy and tired, and you go into inertia to relax, to sleep. While the time when you in the morning you wake up, then you need the rajasic energy, the action energy, that the fiery energy to take over, so you can actually move forward, wake up, and get on with the things that you need to or we should be doing. And then we have similarly the sattvic quality. When we meet with people, our family, our loved ones, society, we need to have the sattvic quality to come into dominance, to live in peace and harmony. So each one of the quality, it has its own value, it has its own beauty, but they are constantly into the battle. So for me, when we think of the health and well-being, so that equilibrium, that balance is actually empowering all these three nature qualities of each and every being, so they can play their perfect role in our life as and when this should be. So when you go to bed, your tamas should be dominating, so you fall asleep. When you wake up, your rajas should be active, so you wake up. When you sit down and trying to meet with people, then sattva should be active, so you find peace, you find harmony between the people, between the group that you are meeting or you having the discussion. But from the yogic perspective, then, as Krishna says, as a yogi, to transcend the cycle of birth and life, which is sort of in a yogic, in a Vedantic and Vedic text, we see it as a suffering, going through the experience. So when you come to yoga, then you want to transcend this life, this energy cycle, to move into the state of transcendence or self-realization or liberation, known as the Nirodha. So Krishna says, as a yogi, to attain that transcendental state or the divine realization, we need to go beyond these three primary or the qualities of the nature. That is the bonding force or the nature force of the life and the birth cycle. So in a yogic sense, when we talk about the absolute health and the Sat Chit Ananda, we want to transcend these three qualities. And as a living yogi or a living sadhu or a living swasthya for me, or the state of Ananda, is actually living that absolute balance or the equilibrium of these three gunas. Okay, now let's move a little bit forward to really expand now. As for me, three gunas are the primary qualitative energy that makes us who we are. Now, these three gunas, as to understand, if you understand a little bit on the concept of karma and the samskaras, then you can actually see why do we have a certain ratio of these three gunas. Why do we have some people are more tamasic than rajasic, some people are more sattvic, or why are we born in this particular situation, a family or a life situation or a culture, or why are we born with certain qualities? So for that, I guess we need to expand this concept of the gunas and these beautiful qualities into the concept of karma. So karma, I know in West, we sort of always sort of take it in a very literal way, is sort of what we sow, so shall we reap. Actually, karmic concept that's a very gross way to look at it. So we need to really understand, the concept of karma includes all that we do, and that includes your breathing, your thinking, your eating, sleeping, or eating, not eating, sleeping, not sleeping. So your physical, then your mental, also your emotional and spiritual activities, the thought processes, the speech that we all are taking part, each one of that is all part of the karma. So the karma is not just the physical action that we do. Karma is all mental contemplation that goes behind. And for me, from the Sankhya perspective, actually, what goes in our mind is far more powerful than what comes into physical action itself. Because every thought that you're going through, it is changing your reality, it's changing your physiology, it's changing your experience, even it is changing the material reality around you. Now, I really like actually, again, the Vedantic way to explain this idea of as your consciousness grows, your reality changes, and as your reality changes, your biology also changes with that moment. So it's sort of, again, looking at our mindset or our attitude. And for me, if you thinking of, again, the Vedantic sort of idea of, think you just having a really good time, and hopefully, we all are still listening to the talk, and you're still paying a bit of attention, when we are in group, people talking to each other. So we have the one state which we know it as the state of conscious awareness or the awakening. So in the awakening state, now hopefully you all can hear me, you can see me on the camera or on your screen. It's such a virtual satsang. Honestly, it's quite powerful way to connect with you all. And I'm really grateful. So in a way, we can see that virtual way of our connection, because we are in this state of awareness. And, I can see behind me, there is a fire, and I got, this beautiful yoga studio, and I can see all of you, I can feel the connection. Now, in that awareness state of awakening, my material reality, my material experience is whatever it is, it's what I experience. So there is a fire behind me. I cannot deny it. There are people around me that I'm connected with. But in the next moment, if I fall asleep, or maybe one of you falls asleep, or when you fall asleep, for your experience, for your perception or your awareness, all that was there while you were awake is gone. So your experience or your reality for your awareness has changed the minute you have fallen asleep. So even maybe I'm talking, but if one of us has fallen asleep, we don't hear that talk anymore. And then if you can transcend yourself to the next state, what we have, the state of dream, the swapna. Now, let's say you just won this lottery ticket, and you got the £1 million, and you're trying to work out what I do and who I can give it to, or can I use it for some charity, or am I going to buy a big house or car, or... So suddenly in your dream, you become your own subject-object experience, and your reality has changed again. So your reality while you're dreaming is the reality in that state of your awareness. Your reality when you awake is the reality in your state of your awakening, state of your awareness. So in that way, our awareness, our awakening, our biology, our experience, they all are changing as our states, our attitude, our perception is changing. So for me, understanding the concept of karma at that subtlest level of your mind, your thoughts, your feelings is actually so much more important than the physical action. Because if you can inculcate this deep sense of calmness or peace from within, love from within, I don't see you going to have the short temper anger or the burst of emotions, because you will be calm and collective. Then the second concept we have is the concept of samskaras. So these are the deep imprinted mental impressions or the behavior patterns, the thinking processes that we all have accumulated. Now, I guess as the Vedanta or the Sankhya explains, the karma and samskaras, we are carrying them from many, many millions of lifetimes our soul has been through. Our body is just like a vehicle or like a cloth is changing. So think of your soul has changed so many clothes or so many bodies. So going through all those life processes, we are accumulating or carrying the karma and samskaras. And it's again very interesting, how like if you look at 3 or 4 people, maybe they're growing into the same family. I can think of my own brothers and my sister, 4 of us, we grew up And, the same parents, same education, we went to the same school, same college. But actually, when we look at ourselves now, we all four are completely different people. What made our different interests, what made us to perceive the same event of the life completely different. So these samskaras that we carry, now the samskaras maybe you're carrying from many, many previous lifetimes, or the samskaras can also be continuously being learned or accumulated through the life experiences. So think of the karmas actually, when you look at the experience of the karma, all the actions, that is leaving the imprint on your mind. That becomes the samskara. And the samskaras can be seen as, when they become so deep in us, they become so frequent, then we sort of use the word for them is the habit, adat. So the samskaras, again, they're affecting your thinking, your experience, your choices, your desires, and your biology too. And when we put the two of them together, the samskaras and karma, they are the one determining our birth, our place, our family, society, and it also creating the life map. And that life map is actually being held together with the gunas. So the dynamic creative force, the life that flows through us in each one of our life, that the governing principle is the nature, the quality that we all are born with, is the three gunas. Now, as you can see, the karma, the balance of the gunas are also changing. And I guess for me, when I come to this point, I really sort of see what we're looking at, the genetic and epigenetic, they sort of seems to be quite together. As the epigenetic also changing the minute your thought process, your mind, your energy, your relations, your association changes. And these three are also changing as we are changing our life and our life attitude. Okay, I will keep it as little as I can. As I know with the concept of karma, that can be a whole sort of month worth of satsangs. We can do a couple of hours every day. So I will try to keep it really simple. So the concept of karma we have as the karma as the kar is the doing, the action, ma is the mind. So all that action that done by I or me. And please remember, as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, we can never be free of the karma. Because in the concept of karma, if you're breathing or you're not breathing, you're eating or you're not eating, sleeping or not sleeping, talking or not talking, listening, not listening, doing, not doing, all that falls under this same category of karma. Now, the karma, when we look at the epigenetic and genetic level, how it is actually governing or giving us the life map. So the first category of karma we have is the sanchit karma. So that can be seen as the genetic or the samskara, this mental and karmic impressions, seeds that we are born with or seeds that we have accumulated from our previous life actions. So these all are the karma that we have accumulated from many, many lifetimes. And this accumulated karma, it waits for the right opportunity, and also it actually forces us to the right environment or the right situation. Again, if you look at some of these pollen, some of these flowers, they travel the wind, they travel the weather, and then they will drop somewhere with the wind, with the rain, into the right environment, right earth, and then they grow into the flowers again. Or you can think of, for me, into our sort of culture here in all of our gardens, we have the tulips, we have some of these beautiful flowers, the bulbs that you plant in your garden. And then you will have the flower when the weather, the environment is the right. Some of them we get just at the beginning of the winter, some of them we get sort of beginning of the spring, some of them we get into the summer. But up to that point, you don't see anything growing into that ground. They're just like underlaying and waiting for the perfect opportunity and environment to grow. So those seeds, if you sort of think of those bulbs, those seeds that's in the ground, those are the ones we're talking here are the sanchit karma. And these sanchit karma are really the ones driving us or sort of governing this three guna constitution and their mix to drive us or take us to the place where the sanchit karma can change into prarabdha karma. So the second one is the karma that is in action, the sprouting, the growing. So that the karma when it starts sprout. So the bulbs, when they sprout, you see the plant, you see the flower coming out. So to me, the genetic and epigenetic are the sanchit and the prarabdha karma as really the governing principles. And then we also have the kriyaman karma. So the kriyaman is the action, the instant or the karma that is in action now. Typical example, you just went out and you put the kettle on and made a cup of tea and you had a nice drink. So you did and you got the fruit. So for me, the kriyaman, the action, the instant karma, think of all the fruits or the achievements, the life events, experience you've gone through. If you can establish the beginning of that action, beginning of that journey and the end of the journey, all that will come into the instant or the current karma that is being done here and now. But when I say here and now, it doesn't have to be just the moment. Once the moment is gone, you've forgotten. We can see, like at the moment we all are into this collective karma of trying to have a bit of satsang on this yogi concept. So then all the time that journey goes, and then we all will be having time to think, contemplate, question, reason, meditate, or follow it. So if we can see the beginning of the journey and the end of the journey, you can see the fruit, that all that karma, that action is the kriyaman karma. Again, you plant a seed, you plant a tree, and you look after it, and you see the tree growing, the plant growing every day, every season. So that will be your kriyaman, your action karma. And then some of the kriyaman, this action karma, if it does not have the instant result or the fruit, again, maybe we're not ready for it or it's not the right time, then it goes back into the sanchit karma or the seed karma, and it waits for its, again, the ideal opportunity. It becomes the karma that is going to come back to us in our future. So we have the sanchit karma, which is the accumulated from previous lifetimes, prarabdha, so the karma that is in action, the consequences, the fruit that we're going through, kriyaman, that is the instant, and then the agami karma. Now, the one other way to look at it really that gives us a little bit of, how to classify the karma. And this is, again, Krishna explains a little bit more. I try to keep it really simple for now. So into this satsang. So in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains the concept of niskam karma. So the action but free from the desire of the fruit. He said, can we perform all our karma, all our actions, but without looking for, without desiring for, or without being attached or indulged into the fruit itself? And he said that the universe promises you, the divine promises you, if you're going to do something, you will always going to have the fruit, or you're going to receive the benefits of your actions. So he categorized, the first category he begins with is the karma. So all that we do, that is mental, verbal, or physical, or either you're doing it yourself, or you encouraging, motivating, discouraging someone else to do it, or you're paying someone to do it, or you are allowing something to happen. So he puts all that under the karma when we are looking for the fruit, or when that I is there. I want something. I do it for my fulfillment, my gratification. Then the second category he talks about is the V karma. So all the actions that are driven for the individual benefits, but the means are not very important there. So we don't care what happens. We're happy to harm people. We're happy to take advantage. So where you are doing things for self-fulfillment, but you are becoming a bit careless and you're just doing whatever you can to benefit yourself. So when your karma, your actions, your choices are actually harming or hurting other people or taking advantage, it becomes the V karma, the negative actions. And then we have the Su karma. So in Su karma, when you do have the desire or the gratification, all the karma that is driven by the sattva, that my fulfillment is in helping other people or sharing the teaching, sharing the wisdom. So the I is still there. But that I is seeking or desiring to help other people to grow, help other people to evolve. So when your focus of the fruit is offering the service, the care, or the nurturing to other people, it becomes a su-karma, the good actions or the good deeds. And then we have the highest one is, Krishna says, is the a-karma. So when your actions, your choices, what you do becomes free from the desire of the fruits itself. When that I is not there, we see ourselves as the instrument of the divine. We performing all our actions, all our karma for the divine purpose itself. It becomes a karma. So that means you're not accumulating that karma anymore. So in karma, vikarma and sukarma, you are accumulating the good or the bad deeds, the fruits or the consequences. While like in karma, you're not accumulating anymore. And this is how, Krishna explained to Arjuna in middle of the battlefield. He said, it is your duty to fight for protecting the humanity, protecting the goodness, protecting the poor, innocent people who cannot fight for them. But he said, if you can take part into this war, but without being attached or without being looking for the fruit of the victory or fruit of the wealth or the governor rulership, he said, it becomes your karma. You become free from the karma itself. I guess now understanding a little bit on the concept of samskaras. So samskaras earlier mentioned, these are the deep imprinted mental impressions, or the sort of, we really see the samskaras we carry in our manomaya kosha. So the samskaras comes from this word itself, is a Sanskrit word, comes from the two roots sama. So the sama is complete or joined or together. And then the kara is the action, the cause or the doing. So the samskara, when you are completely attached or performing or doing things, and mostly actually you will find that whenever our choices are made or governed by the samskaras, the old imprints, they are made almost on an autopilot. Now, the samskaras, obviously, they can be positive or they can be negative. So these samskaras we accumulate from our experiences or traumas, our perceptions, all the life events that we have gone through. So depending on the nature and the experience and what it involves, samskaras can be positive or negative. They can be constructive or destructive. They can be good for humanity, good for yourself. As in Vedas, we talk about 16 different samskaras, beginning from the conception all the way up to the death. And then there are lots of samskaras we also need to understand even after death. So these are the deep imprinted behavior patterns or the energy patterns is almost governing our life choices and actions that we go through. Now, again, the samskaras, I'm not going to go into too far detail for here now, looking at the time. Now, when we looked at the karma into as before, now we can look at actually this concept here. Again, it comes from one of the Upanishad where, literally, it's not exactly literally. I try to again simplify it for us all to really understand and take it forward in our health and well-being. So you can actually even see the samskara and karma, you can put them in two categories. And this is where really the genetic and epigenetic genetic level, your birth, your life, color, your caste, all that are governed or determined by this samskaric and the karmic energy that we have. So the karma and samskara, the first one we have, the first category we have is the vyaktigat. So this is the individual karma and the individual mental impressions or the thought patterns or the behavior patterns we all carry. Now think of those habits, those patterns, those experiences or the mindset we carry, but think of all those ones, they don't have any influence on other people. They are your individual. So the first category, you have the vyaktigat, the individual karma, individual samskara. Then second one we have the vansa or the family. This is the collective mental and the karmic impressions we carry or we born with our family. And it's a very interesting actually idea to think about, why are we born in a certain family, in a certain situation in a certain country because of that you have been given the individual life, but you also being put onto a bigger stage of your family than your society and the country. So we have the vansa or the collective family karmas and the samskaras. You can expand it to further. So as obviously, please remember, as you are moving into the collective ones, they are getting more and more diluted. So the most intense ones will be the individual, then the family, then the social, and then the collective at the country, and then the adhyatmic are the subtlest one. Obviously, once we can come out of our individual and the collective into the cosmic, then the adhyatmic is actually the all pervading, it's all connective. In the adhyatmic, the collective samskaras, the spiritual impressions, we all are connected, and then sort of as in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, also in Vedanta, in Vedas, each soul is driven upward into this spiral onward moving energy or the life cycle, and is moving upward towards the path or the fulfillment, attainment of self-realization. So the samajik samskaras, the collective social karma and the mental impressions, again you will see, again I believe though, for me, when you start to look at the individual and the collective of these mental impressions or the samskaras, the behavior patterns, you can see how there are so many things are so similar or connected into a particular society or a particular family, or even as a bigger picture when you look at the country, how I would say at least 70 to 80% people will have some sort of harmonized or connective mindset. And it's really amazing, if you look at that, how like the Eastern and Western culture, the philosophy, the mindset in ancient time was completely different to each other, and how people were born into two different cultures. But at the adhyatmic samskaras, it is actually collective, it's all pervading, but only again, the issue here is when we quote into the individual or into the gross, then we don't really have much access to it. Because the adhyatmic samskaras or the energy, to understand that, we have to go beyond our sensory or the mental information into the transcendental realm or the akashic wisdom, or what we call the vijnana. For the life, we have the jnana, the wisdom, the knowledge we need to live our life in harmony. But actually, to go into the adhyatmic one, we need the vijnana, the cosmic wisdom of the spirit and the divine itself. Okay, so moving into now, it's sort of really for me, sort of connecting the gunas and the samskaras and our karma together, and then seeing them also from our modern sort of neuroscience and the medical perspective with the genetic and epigenetic. As in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that, yes, you are born with the prarabdha, you are born with the predefined or the given the life map to you based on your karma and samskaras or the energy that you have lived in previous lifetimes. We said at any point you want, you can change them through your kriyaman karma, through your jnana, through your wisdom, through your yoga, through your meditation. As you know, the ultimate goal of each and every life, each and every soul or being is to attain this state of swasthya. Swasthya is the absolute state of ease or oneness of the self with its own self. And that leads us into the state of ananda, the bliss, the joy, the true sort of the bliss that we all are seeking for. So again, for me, putting the practices together, and I'm sure, each one of us can sort of have our own way to look at how or where do we begin the changes. For me, when I think of making the changes in our life at this such a subtle level of our existence, when we look at the samskaras or the karmas, the gunas and the genetics, it has to begin somewhere with the sankalpa itself. So the sankalpa is actually a willful thought or intention, or think of a very determined, focused intention, a path that you choose. Your intention can be, I want to be healthy, But you need a sankalpa, because we think so many times, how many of us think, I like to be healthy? And then honestly, how many of us also do know what should we eat, how much exercise should we do, what pranayama should we do, what sort of people we should associate, but doing it. So to me, the sankalpa is a determined mind where you make a big decision for your own self. Please remember, the sankalpa cannot be taken for other people. Sankalpa has to be taken by you for your own self. So making that strong intention, and in a mind healing practices, actually, when I look at some of the new age healing or like the meditation practices where we're looking at healing our body, our mind, our heart, our digestion through the meditation, through the mindfulness, the sankalpa actually is quite an amazing, quite a powerful practice. Because remember, as we say into the Vedas, into our Upanishads, especially in Ayurveda, it says, you are what you eat and you become what you think. So to me, this concept of sankalpa is actually having the positive intention, the positive mindset around yourself. It's sort of like, I'm sure Mr. Ramji and Sonaliji would have experienced in India. And I experienced this so many times, even when I went out to see people in a hospital where they know they got, a couple of more days, or they got operation in a few days, and you just ask them, how are you today? How are you? Most people into the older Indian generation, the first answer will come, I'm great. I'm okay. So that first answer is actually about the spirit, about the bigger picture of us. Doesn't matter what problem, suffering we're going through, we're not associating our soul, our spirit, or consciousness with it. So that is the sankalpa, that deep down in me, I am good. I am full of bliss. I'm full of joy. So to me, setting up our mind, setting up our intention for the change, that will hopefully give us a bit of drive for. Once you set up your mind, then you need to have the fire, you need to have that zeal or the virya that we need, and that comes from the tapas. And I know I could have taken the tapas after the abhyasa and vairagya, but I do feel actually even to come to the point where we start to practice or bring things in our life in practice, we do need this fire, that the deep desire that you all need to actually seek for health, seek for well-being, seek for solutions of the problems. And I really love, way Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna asked him, tell me, what is the difference between a worldly mind and a spiritual mind, a sadhu or a yogi? And Krishna literally said that when your mind is caught into the worldly pleasures or the worldly suffering, we are constantly engrossed in looking at problems. I have this problem, I have that problem, my life is a problem, my economy is a problem, my job is a problem, my relation is a problem, my health is a problem. And I love, our Guru Swami Gitananda Giri always said, in this beautiful world, in this universe, there is no problem. And if there is a problem, that is I, the ego itself. It's our perspective, it's our attitude. So in a way, to break out of that, we need this tapas, we need this strong desire to look for the solution. So he said the yogis, when you come to the yogic life, or even you say, I follow yoga, then your focus is not a problem anymore. Your focus, what can I do? What is the solution? What is the resolution? So we start to look for the solution. And I love the ecological example Krishna uses here. He said, a worldly mind will be looking around how to make money. And if there is a forest in front of them, they will keep cutting all the trees just for the sake of wood and money. And if the mind taken over by the yogic mind or the sattvic mind, then yes, you might still be looking at the wood because you need wood to cook your meal or to keep you warm in your house or build the house. But you will be looking at how do I grow the trees and so I can take my fair share I need. So a yogi will be looking at how do I plant the tree before they will look into how to cut a tree. So this tapas, this to me, again, the Swamiji, our Guru Anamaji sort of puts that in together, is the regularity, repetition and rhythm. So having that strong heart, that strong mind, the sankalpa that I am going to follow this. Is like, being vegetarian or eating a healthy diet. for one meal in a week, and then rest of the week I eat anything I want to eat. So following rest of the week, you follow the desires, you follow the ama, the desire or the attraction to the toxins. So this tapas, the energy that you get, the fire that you get, that keeps you on the disciplined path. And to enhance that, now we need to learn, or we need to understand what is right and what is wrong, what should I follow and what should I not follow. So to me, I would put the Sakshi Bhava or the Swadhyaya, the introspection or the witnessing awareness, actually becoming aware, knowing our own thoughts, knowing our desires, knowing our body, knowing our all the inner actions and reactions that we're going through. Because if you really want to make the change at the samskaric or epigenetic level, please remember, before you can put a positive thought, we need to realize what is wrong there. Because you can't hide the negative mindset, you can't hide the negative energy. We need to follow the cleansing process. We need to follow this letting go process. Otherwise, think of that, you're just taking all the rubbish in your bedroom and hiding it under your bed. It's just going to cause stink, bacteria, virus, and health problems. So think of this third concept of the Sakshi Bhava and the Swadhyaya is the concept of diagnosis, concept of knowing where we are. So this Sankalpa actually the goal. Tapas is having the energy, the life force that takes you through. And then the witnessing awareness, actually seeing yourself, where are you now at this point in your life? It's like, again, think of if you were driving your car 10 years ago, before we have the set now, before we have the map that is fitted in our car. If you're looking at the AA, that old map, first you need to know really where you are standing on that map, and then you need to find your destination so you can create the route on where you're going. So this concept is actually knowing ourselves, becoming aware, self-diagnosis. And then once you have diagnosed, or once you have become aware, you are connected with yourself, then you move into the next concept of Vidya or Jnana. So the right knowledge, the right wisdom, or the right tools and practices. So here you have prepared yourself to follow the path. Now you are acquiring or accumulating the practices for your body, your mind, and your soul, or your health, your well-being, your spiritual evolution. All our scriptures, they were written that, sort of for me, I think, Bhagavad Gita or the Bible or the Yoga Sutras, all these Vedanta, all these scriptures were written and given to us all as the source of the right wisdom or the right jnana that we follow to liberate ourselves. And once you have taken the right wisdom or the right knowledge, then to me the next step comes with the abhaya, the fearlessness. Because all the time in life you got the fear of letting go, fear of voidness, fear of unknown. As again, in most of the Vedic scriptures, fear is defined or explained as one of some of the major causes of pain and suffering in our life. So we have the ajnana, we have abhaya, we have asmita, we have ahamkara. So this fear is what actually causes this sense of possessiveness, the sense of holding on to things, and it leads us into confused mind, anger, frustration, guilt, resentment. And many of us, this fear does not even allow us to take the initiative. I have known people, many people, when I talk about health and well-being, and they go home and then they don't ever practice anything that they can be doing for their own health and well-being. So this even fear of actually losing a problem, how many of us can be so attached, my blood pressure, my hypertension, my diabetes, my depression, how people possess the problems and pain in life. And honestly, if you have some sort of magic to remove the pain or the problem away, you will see next day they will come up with a new problem. So this fearlessness actually enabling yourself or ourselves to be able to see beyond our box of limited awareness, limited living, or that I. And once you become fearless, then we need to come to our next mental practice, the darsana. Here for me, the meditation and some of these beautiful practices of the samyama, our dharana, dhyan, and samadhi, they can come under darsana. Also, our yogic philosophy, our Vedantic philosophy, the viewpoint or the perspective that gives us all the tools on how to look at our life, our soul, our body, and our associations. Now, in some of the, again, the modern or new age mind healing, actually, they use darsana quite a lot in healing power, as the practice they use is the imagery. So actually creating the vision, creating an image of health and well-being. And this is something I find so fascinating from the neuroscience. Remember, if you're thinking, I don't like to be unhappy. Now, your brain has to process that as far as what unhappiness means, and then it will try to replace it. So if you are creating a negative vision, actually you are allowing your brain and your biological, your chemical secretions to be full of lots of negative energy too. So the minute you say, I don't want to be unhealthy. So it says that this concept of darsana, the concept of vision, is actually creating a positive vision, a positive enhanced awareness. It's another study actually we did back in school when I was in India. And we took lots of kids who were really struggling into the academics because of the memory problem. And we worked with them for nearly an year. And honestly, the practice we were doing with them, we put them all in a one section, and any teacher came in before they will start their lesson, they would ask everyone to repeat a few times that what I read, what I listen, or what I process, I can remember them. I can retain the memory. And honestly, just by changing the thought, the mindset that I cannot remember into I can remember, we had around 60% change into their academic result. Now, I'm not talking about the psychological thing. It's actually the math, the science result changed that much just by changing the mindset. So this concept of darsana, concept of imagery, concept of vision is creating a positive, a holistic, or the divine vision. So instead of thinking of I don't want to be unhealthy, I don't want to have pain in my knee or my head, we need to create a new image of how you want to become, how you want to look, how you want to feel, how you want to experience life itself. And that need to be followed or empowered with our ahara vihara. So the ahara is the food, because remember, the food we eat, each and every of the food, the grain that goes into your system, it carries its own epigenetic and genetic memory. And I do believe, more I think about why the yoga or the Veda and the Vedantic philosophy, where we're looking at such a subtle way of our existence, why they choose to be vegetarian. I guess because they wanted every possible way to reduce the second-hand memory that can go into our body. So if we are eating animal meat, which also has carried lots of fear and lots of anxiousness, uncertainty, and all that negative energy, then when you eat that food, that energy, that epigenetic memory, the samskara actually going to be taken in your own collective, your samskaric or your karmic energy. And for me, that's how I always understood that why the yogis choose to be vegetarian, because they wanted the clean life energy that has its own dynamic transformative process, life that can grow again. So the ahara, what you feed. And sometimes, I love way Swamiji explains, sometimes you might feel, I want to eat a bit of fast food, junk food. Even in the fast or junk food, at least if you have the right intention, right mindset, it will eradicate or it will get rid of all the negative effects you might have. And I'm sure we all experience that, now and then you have this strong desire to go and eat something that may be, not healthy for you. But if you have the right mindset, for me, it's not just the food you eat, it's also the mindset, the intention, how we prepare it, how we produced it. It also has a huge sort of positive or the negative effect. And then the lifestyle is itself, vihara. So the vihara is, your time to sleep, time to eat, time to go to bed, time to do exercise, time to wake up, meeting with people, what sort of people you're meeting, what sort of books you read, what sort of information you're taking. So to me, the ahara vihara is actually all that intake process, we intake and giving process that we go through. So because you're not only taking the food, you're also taking the energy, the thoughts, the wisdom, experiences from each and every event. So we empowering this process of transformation with the right sort of set of what we call the mitahara and the moderate food. Again, I'm not saying that we all need to be extremely fixed on something. No, we need to find the moderate way. That's what Krishna says. To have real success in your life, your yogic journey, we need to live moderately. Not sleeping too much or not sleeping enough, eating too much or not eating enough, doing too much or not doing enough. So we need to find the right balance. And this is where the ahara vihara, your food and your lifestyle becomes very important. Your family, your social, your economy, your entertainment, your relations, all that is actually part of your evolutionary journey, your experience. We human being, we are not actually meant to be locked into a cave. We deeply are connected with each other. So we want to live in society. We want to live with people. So the ahara vihara concept really gives us a right mindset and the right sort of virtues and the intention to live our life in the moment. And then we follow that through abhyasa and vairagya. So the abhyasa is the practice, and then the vairagya is the detachment. So as Swamiji again, Gitananda Giri, he says that each and every human being have the birthright of health and happiness. We all deserve and we all seek for health and happiness. But he said, well, if that is your birthright, you must claim it. And how do you claim it? By abhyasa, by practice, by doing everything that brings true health and that brings true happiness or true joy in your life. Abhyasa, please remember, abhyasa without vairagya is never enough. Sometimes you can sit and meditate for 5 minutes and thinking, I am divine, aham brahmasmi, or soham. And I've known lots of people, they contemplate, they meditate, and then once they leave their yoga mat, back to the same world of anger, guilt, frustration, resentment. So this concept of vairagya is also actually the detachment or letting go that is not necessary for you to hold on to. As earlier we were talking about the problems. Actually, problems are not following us. We are the one clinging on to the problems. Our past, our old experiences, our samskaras, they are not clinging on to us. We are clinging on to them. Again, another really sort of beautiful Vedic story where, talking about the sadhu, he wanted to give this lesson on vairagya or letting go to the people. Anyway, one of the village, one of the guys, someone like you and me, came around, and there was this beautiful tree that they were fighting about. And this guy was like, oh, this is my tree, and he actually come around, right? And then, somehow his mindset was caught into, like, we are caught into problems. And he started to scream that the tree has caught me. And he was screamed his head off like, the tree has caught me. What do I do? How can I free myself? Now, remember, if I'm actually fighting with my own claims, with my own fists, there is no way I can win against it. Now, gradually, the whole village gathered around and everyone spread the arms around and caught each other and are trying to free themselves from the tree. And the cleansing, this holding, got bigger and bigger. At that point, one of the sadhu or one of this enlightened sage, the yogi, walked past, and he looked at them and he said, oh, I don't understand why you all are suffering. And he said, can't you get it? This is a magic tree, and the tree has caught us all, and we cannot free ourselves. So because it's fixed in their mind that tree has caught us and we can't free ourselves. Now the yogi said, oh, I have the power. I have this mystical, you free all of you. He went around chanting his mantra Om, and he stroked each one of their hands and he just sort of eased them, softened them, and gradually freed everyone. And he looked at them and he said that the tree is not holding on to you all are clinging onto the tree. And the lesson he gives at that point, he said, the problems are not clinging onto you. The sand is not clinging in your hands. The water is not being, your hands are not being held by the water in your palms, in your anjali. We are holding the water. We are clinging onto the sand. So the karma, the samskaras, these epigenetic disorders are actually the sand or the water, the tree in our arms. So abhyasa, actually doing what need to be done by us for attaining health and happiness. And then the vairagya, letting go of all that is causing pain or bringing the unhealthy changes in our life. So the abhyasa vairagya. And then to me, the last and the highest one, as the ultimate goal is the swasthya and ananda, or the sat chit ananda, living a spiritual life or following the spiritual path, doing your hatha yoga, your pranayama, your meditation, the satsangs, and reading or studying all these ideas over and over again until we really experience or understand them. So living that spiritual life in love, in peace, in harmony within yourself, your macro and the microcosm. So your individual universe within you, and then your whole universe, your family, your friends, your society, our Mother Earth, and the solar system itself. So to me, this is a bit of step-by-step way to look at it. And each one of you can actually sub-categorize them. In Sankalpa, you can put some meditation, contemplation practices. In Tapas, we can bring Hatha Yoga, Pranayama, and the Bandhas. All those practices can really help the enhancing the cleansing or the energy awakening processes. And there is a little bit of, I guess, the references where you can all look further. For me, as the step-by-step course by Swami Gitananda Giri, which is Dr. Anand actually running it online for now. So I'm not sure some of you might actually have joined that in too. But there are, some amazing scriptures out there, Bhagavad Gita and some of the Vedantic scriptures, if you want to look a little bit more deeper into it. Well, anyway, I think I will stop here. If any one of you have any questions, or I will hand you all back to Ramji.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Lovely talk. Well done. Questions, please. Does anybody have questions, or are they just stunned into silence here? Questions in real time. You can, we will unmute you. You can just unmute yourself, I think. Do we have, Christina, can we have the power of unmute? Can we unmute people? Yeah, okay. You have the power of speech. Any questions?
Can I ask a question, please, on the tapas?
Oh, a minute. Can you make it a bit louder, please?
On the tapas that you mentioned, the second thing was the three R's. Can you just explain what the 3 R's? When you talked about the example of food, you did your sankalpa.
Yeah.
And then how do you relate that example to the 3 R's? Your repetition, your etc.
Yes, so that's again, that's a very good question actually, and a good reminder. I remind that to myself every day too. So this concept of 3 R that was given by Swami Gitananda Giri, let tapas with it. So the first one is the regularity. So think of the sankalpa or the life practice that you know that work or help you to bring the transformation. You go to follow that as a regular practice. So the regularity, then we need to repeat that over and over again and again. But we also need to bring some, remember our human life is actually governed by the dynamic universe, the dynamic create, so that the regularity, rhythm, and repetition. And I guess to simplify, I really like the way Ammaji explains it. Think of you are trying to dig a well in your garden so you can have your own spring water from the ground. Well, to get the water into your well, you must dig the same hole every day. You can't go out and start digging a hole for and there, then we end up with small pit holes and it becomes. To me, this concept actually, that since maybe a pranayama, a meditation, or lifestyle, you something out. And this is, I kind of think of this way because in mind we have so much things happening, and it's like dipping into one thing today and the other thing tomorrow. So that's how I see this concept of regularity, repetition, and the rhythm. And once you have decided or taken the sankalpa, then you need to really follow that until you get to the fruit or the experience of it. Hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just we need to dig a same hole to get the water.
Thank you.
So instead of digging a lot of holes, dig the same hole, but dig it deeper, and you will reach water eventually.
Yes.
Right. So, Angela, did you have a question?
Oh, yes, I did. Thank you. I was just wondering, if we start implementing a healthy lifestyle, how quickly does the body respond from an epigenetics point of view?
It will really depends on the power of your mind. So honestly, for me, it does not take very long. As long as we can put the abhyasa and vairagya together. So for me, as long as you have some input of vairagya, the letting go, then you will start to see the changes within few days. It does not take, if you think of like the months and years, no, you will see the fruit from very, very quick. So what we in a therapeutic way, we have the word of like the symptomatic relief, and then we have the cure, and then we have the healing. So trust me, if you start to follow them and then have the vairagya, the detachment or the letting of the problems, then the symptomatic relief start to occur within days. Sometimes it can happen like within one session of your practice. It's actually just, when you leave your practice, you follow that in your life itself, not just the 1 minute sort of thing. So yeah, you will have a quick sort of change in a bigger picture. I guess when I look at the Sankhya concept, then to transform yourself completely at a very subtle epigenetic level, then like the Swami explained, we need to practice or do our sadhana 7 cycles of 9 months. So which sort of, I guess in old ancient Vedic time, the 3 months they were left for the sadhana, the time of the rain season, where because the rain and the climate is so harsh, they would have a break from the practice. So they talk about 7 cycles of 9 months each. So in 7 years, if you have taken a tapas, a sankalpa, and the practices and the diet, you can actually get to your purest form of your epigenetic and your cellular living. And the kaya kalpa they use, I haven't done it myself, so please don't ask me how do we do it, but in some scriptures they do mention about the kaya kalpa, when you can take you back into its healthy state where it is. And I believe the cycle of 7 years is the longest we will need to follow.
Okay, thank you very much.
Right. Okay, somebody mentioned that would you be able to make the slides available to people? They are lovely slides.
Yes, I will send them to you in one day, and you can share them, please. Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much. That'll be good.
I can also share actually the whole research article that I got, the text I'm working on. Still, it's not refined to where I want to take it, but I will share the document with you too. So,
right. That's lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Any other questions here? It was, to me, it was taking science and taking the yoga and trying to put it together, and how scientists are now finding out. At one time they said your genes are everything, that's the way you're born, nothing can be changed at all. Then epigenetics came in, and now what you're saying is that from long ago they actually understood that through yoga practices it was possible to modify these things. So science is just rediscovering the fact that genes can be modified even during a lifetime to suit ourselves. So I found it very interesting from that perspective. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. So it's a lovely talk. As usual, we are very grateful for your support. It's always been throughout the time that we've known you, and very, very pleased to know you, Deepika, and the children. And may your practice go very well down in Wales. I know you have a wonderful practice over there. So so well done, and thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. It's a lovely Sunday afternoon and another fabulous talk. Thank you very much indeed. That would very much appreciate it.
Thank you very much for you to really bring this World Yoga Festival or the the spiritual community satsang together. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Bye bye everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Have a lovely time. Stay safe. Stay safe.